Norman Day Jr.,
Corporal Charles Holt, Lieutenant Craig King, and Officer Jerry Jones. What a horrible year 2020 was for all of us.
Deputy Dwight Willis,
Sergeant J.L. Buck Dancy,
Deputy Sheriff Claude Winston Gilry, better known as Winston.
Truck was a dear friend. He was a great father and well respected in the community, and truly is missed.
Dwight was my best friend. He was one of my main reasons for coming to work.
Sergeant Dancy, or Buck, was a fantastic example of what a man, father, leader, mentor, and everything in between should be.
We would like you to know his presence filled the room. His children and those who knew him would like you to know he was funny and hilarious.
We would like everybody to remember him for his dedication to his family,
the sheriff's office,
his community, and church.
Dwight and I were married 32 years. I have known him since we were 12. We're best friends all of our life.
Norman was a proud Marine, served his country and served his community. Norman was the type of person that if you only met him, you liked him. But if you knew him, you loved him.
Winston loved the Lord. He loved me. He loved his family, and he loved his families of officers.
TJ was a funny guy, loved to make everybody laugh, had a great sense of humor.
Lakaya is and will forever be in our thoughts, memories, and our hearts.
I worked with Tom for 11 years, and he was my son's godfather. I was only 1.5 when Tom passed away. We miss you, buddy.
Tonight, we pay tribute to the 182 men and women who died of COVID-19 while serving and protecting their communities, and to all of the brave law enforcement professionals who lost their lives in the line of duty. As we do every year, we will honor the courage and salute the sacrifice made by those heroes and their families. Good evening. I am Marcia Ferranto, CEO of the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund. It is my honor and privilege to welcome you to our 33rd annual Candlelight Vigil. I think this time last year, none of us could have imagined the toll that COVID-19 would take on the men and women of law enforcement. But sadly, all over the country, our law enforcement professionals continue to lose their lives to COVID as they go about their jobs, selflessly helping those in need and putting the welfare of others above their own. Unfortunately, once again, due to the pandemic, this year's memorial events could not be held on the National Mall in Washington, D.C. during Police Week. However, we are happy to announce that we will have the opportunity to honor our fallen officers together as we host an in-person vigil on Thursday, October 14th, and I hope you will be able to join us. This year's Candlelight Vigil pays tribute to 394 law enforcement officers whose names have just been added to the walls of the memorial, joining the 22,217 already engraved there. Most of the names added this year were those who lost their lives in 2020. But each year, we also add historical names of fallen officers who have been discovered by our research team to qualify as official line of duty deaths. Tonight, we will continue the tradition of reading the names of the fallen. We will hear survivor stories and tribute messages of gratitude and support. We thank all of you and want to express special gratitude to our generous virtual Candlelight Vigil sponsors, Adam R. Rose, and presenting corporate sponsor, Verizon. Thank you for making it possible for us to gather virtually to respect, honor, and remember our fallen heroes. Together, we stand united by light. Now it is my honor to introduce Tammy Irwin, CEO of Verizon Business.
Thank you, Marcia. Verizon is privileged to be able to present tonight's event, which is one of the most solemn, important, and inspirational annual observances honoring our law enforcement heroes. We are grateful to all first responders, and we seek to comfort and console the family and friends that they have left behind. Now, as a special tribute to those men and women who have made the ultimate sacrifice, we begin the reading of the names in a final roll call of honor.
From the state of Alabama, Nicholas Daniel O'Rear, Stephen Paul Williams, Gail S. Green, Parnell Leroy Guyton. From the state of Arizona, Jason W. Judd, Greg Scott Carnicle. From the state of Arkansas, Ed Thomas Allen, Travis Santal Wallace, Brent William Perry Scrimshire, James Lawrence Dancy, Kevin Dwayne Collins. From the state of California, Oscar Walter Rocha, Daniel Lopez Mendoza III, Andy Ornelas, Efren Coronel, Angel de la Fuente, Jose Cruz Mora Jr., Larry Dean Crom, Donald Keith Sumner, Virgil Lynn Thomas, Harry Morris Cohen, Terrell Don Young, Daniel Jean Walters, Damon Christopher Gutzwiller, Mary Lou Hernandez Armour.
Today, we gather to honor the 394 fallen officers whose names have been added to the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial. I am constantly inspired by the extraordinary courage and dedication with which members of law enforcement act each day. When the global pandemic struck last March, members of law enforcement continued to serve despite the additional risks that the virus posed for their health and safety. And it took a terrible toll. To the families of the fallen, we know that not a single day nor a single week is enough to recognize your loss. On behalf of the entire Department of Justice, you have our unwavering support and eternal gratitude.
This year marks a full decade since I've had the privilege to be the honorary chairman of the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund. It marks the 10th time to witness the Candlelight Vigil, a yearly tribute to the brave men and women who have given their life to keep our country safe. Please know that the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund will make certain that your loved ones' sacrifice is not forgotten, and they will be remembered as some of our country's greatest heroes.
From the state of Colorado, Kurt Michael Holland, James C. Ritchie, Andrew Sandberg, Jeffrey Christopher Hopkins, Brendan Patrick Unit. From the District of Columbia, Mark Randall Eckenrode, Keith D. Williams, Sr. From the state of Florida, Shannon Santo Bennett, Aldemar Rengifo, Jr., Eric John Twisdale, Robert Wayne Rogers, Julian L. Keene, Joseph John Bullock, Christopher Michael Cunningham, Sr., Richard Mark Berry, Lynn D. Jones, Paul Patrick Dunn, Kenneth Dale Foley, Corey Pendergrass, Jairo Antonio Bravo, Aubrey Travis Johnson, Jr., Angela Denise Chavers, Jose Antonio Diaz-Ayala, Maurice Chevalier Ford, William Thomas Etheridge, Charles Otis Pugh II.
The Fund's Board of Directors remain even more committed than ever to our charge of ensuring that these heroes are never forgotten. We will always remember, we will always honor their sacrifice, we will always respect their willingness to give their lives to keep us all safe.
This year, as the National Law Enforcement Memorial turns 30 years old, we wanted to mark this anniversary by sharing the story of how the memorial came about and what it means to the survivors, members of law enforcement, and the community.
The National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Wall is a testament to the officers who have given their lives in the line of duty in America. This is where we remember and honor them.
This is a special place. These are the law enforcement officers around the country who went to work and didn't come home. This is where our entire nation recognizes the sacrifice of those officers and the loss to those families.
It's a healing place. It's a beautiful place. It's law enforcement's holy ground.
30 years since this memorial's been dedicated. Yeah, the history of the memorial really goes back to the 1970s when a police officer in New York suggested we enact legislation to build a National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial. That led to the effort to raise the money, to select the site. The first national ceremony during Police Week was in 1982. That was 2 years before this memorial was authorized by Congress. More than 4 million Americans contributed money to make sure that this monument was built. And now we have a National Law Enforcement Museum right across the street to tell the stories behind the names on these walls. When we were creating the design for this memorial, we wanted it to be a peaceful, park-like setting where families and colleagues and citizens could come and reflect on the level of service and sacrifice law enforcement gives this country. The touching moments that occurred, and you see it every day. It allows them that moment to remember and honor their fallen colleague or fallen loved one.
There's this sort of haunting, majestic beauty here. It's the way that it moves fluidly, how understated and beautiful it is. My brother, Brian T. Gibson, was a Metropolitan Police officer. We're at 50E, which is where Brian's name is, and he's right here. The first time I saw Brian's name on the wall was really difficult. I remember my mother and I both put our hands on it. You feel the embrace of thousands of other law enforcement officers. It's not just your officer.
We lost Harvey to 9/11 related cancer. It changes everything when it's someone you knew. Everything just kind of comes back at once, and there's just a very real presence when you come here because they're here too.
My husband, Sergeant Chris Eney, died in the line of duty in August of 1984. When I lost Chris, I really didn't know what to do or where to go. But being near this memorial brought me comfort. Being around others who had lost their loved ones, it became a family. Especially if it's around Police Week, you see a lot of children. My girls were 9 and 11 when their dad died. To see these children here can really tear at the heartstrings. To have this for survivors coming in and these other law enforcement officers, it just means everything. It just can bring such peace, even through tears. You're not alone when you're here.
So while I'm here etching my brother's name, they are adding panels to the wall because we know that so many more officers are going to make that ultimate sacrifice, and it's really sad.
There will be more names and more survivors coming in, and we will be here for all of them.
It is comforting to know that the sacrifice of thousands of law enforcement officers will not be forgotten. The wall remembers and honors them.
Each year, thousands upon thousands of men and women honorably serve as law enforcement officers in this country. And every year, they suffer casualties in their effort to honor the oath they took to protect and to serve. They will always be missed and remembered by their loved ones and families, and it's incumbent upon us to always remember how they sacrificed for us.
I've grown up around policing. My uncles were officers in New Jersey, and I am sworn in as a deputy sheriff myself. Police officers put their lives on the line every day to serve and protect their communities. Every name on this memorial represents an officer who died in the line of duty. Over 22,000 names. Tonight, we honor their service and remember their families they left behind.
From the state of Georgia, L. Dale Allen. Cantaris Dwayne Taylor. Avery Delshawn Hillman. Jane Alice Ash. Philip Kravaratis. William Robert Garner. Kenny Bernard Ingram. Anthony Lamar White. Stanley Curtis Elrod. James Edward Morton. James Michael Cornaccha. Brian Keith McNair. Stephen Bradley Crazy Wolf Dutton. Patrick David Snook. Sheldon Gordon Whiteman. Charles Edward Norton. Stephen Allen Minor. Christopher Eric Ewing. Philip Edward Street. From the state of Hawaii, Tiffany Victoria Bailan Enriquez. Kaulike Sailor Gerard Kalama. From the state of Idaho, Wyatt Christopher Mazer.
When we think about what a year it was last year, police were challenged in ways they never have been. And for some, they paid the ultimate price, and they were heroes.
Among the law enforcement officials being memorialized tonight, the total number who have died in 2020 was higher than it has been in almost 50 years. I am humbled and deeply grateful for their service and their sacrifice. My heartfelt condolences to the families and loved ones of all those whose lives are being remembered this evening.
From the state of Illinois, Marco DeFranco. Clifford Willie Martin Sr. Titus Teopsy Moore. Ronald Newman. Antoine Pierre Jones. Jose Pedro Marquez. Richard William O'Brien Jr. Sheila Janelle Rivera. Terrence Allen Engel. From the state of Indiana, Joseph Fishback Sr. Tuwan Fontres Johnson. Brianne Rochelle Leith. Kenneth Reed Lester. From the state of Kansas, Alan Joseph Weber. Charles A. McKinney. Oyufela A. Adebi. Gabe Morales. George Bernard Robar. Daniel Ray Abramovitz. Michael Sean Mosher. From the state of Kentucky, John Arthur Lawson. William E. Maddox. James Traver Kirk.
Police officers have always put their lives on the line to serve and protect their communities. To families and co-workers of the 394 names being read tonight, please know their dedication, bravery, and sacrifice will never be forgotten.
We pay homage to their courage and their bravery. We remember their service, and we seek to comfort and console the family and friends that they have left behind.
Mommy, are we gonna go to the park?
Later on.
I wish Daddy can go to the park with us.
Me too, baby. My name is Alisa Cordova, and Jesus Cordova was my husband. Jesus was an officer for the Nogales, Arizona Police Department. He made the ultimate sacrifice on Friday, April 27, 2018. I would describe Jesus as one of the most patient and loving people on this planet. He was a loving father, a caring husband, an only son.
Jesus treated everybody with dignity and respect, even the people that he was arresting. That morning, I made him breakfast. I ironed his uniform. So he walks to the door. He turns back. He smiles. Just a beaming smile. And that was it. He closed the door, and that was the last time I saw him. There was a carjacking. Jesus heard the call, and then the car literally passed him. He made a U-turn to follow the car. Trailed the car into a grocery store parking lot, and that's where he was ambushed.
Arizona is mourning after a Nogales police officer was shot and killed in the line of duty.
So I get to the hospital, and it was like slow motion. The doctor comes in. She looks down and she's like, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." The shot that killed him was in his left lung. I believe he might have been shot around 18 times with an automatic rifle. It was bad. I'm like, why? My husband was such a good man. Yeah. Our kids lost their father. I lost my husband, my best friend. My mother lost her only son. At the time of Jesus' death, I was 5 months pregnant with our 4th child. He was robbed. He was robbed from a very, very full life, and we were robbed. I never thought I would be a widow at 29. For me, the hardest thing is that our kids are going to grow up missing the other half of who they are.
I miss my daddy.
You miss your daddy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Jesus' name was added to the memorial wall in Washington in 2019. The wall, it's incredible. You just see people's pain. You share that. You're all there for the same reason. As I was approaching the wall, looking for Jesus' name, I was in tears. It's overwhelming, honestly. And just to see all those names on that wall, every name is a person, is a story, is a family. They're feeling my pain, I'm feeling theirs.
From the state of Arizona, Jesus Manuel Cordova.
My husband's name is on there. It's gonna be there forever. I want people to remember Jesus as our hometown hero, number 1. Number 2, the loving son he was, the loving father he was. He's not just another name. He was a family man. He was a community man. He was honorable. He was just amazing. And
and I have to live for him. Never forgetting, but continuing to honor Jesus. Because at the end of the day, that's all we have. That's my story. I'm very proud. I'm very proud to be my husband's wife. We love you, Daddy.
Love you, Daddy.
We miss you.
From the state of Louisiana, Glenn Dale Hutto Jr., Kevin Paul Trahan, Donna Michelle Richardson Bello, Claude Winston Guillory, Caitlin Marie Cowley, George Bowman Baker, Marshall Lee Waters Jr., Levi Kelling Arnold Sr., Raymond Andrew Bozeman, Mark Albert Hall Sr., Sharon M. Williams, Stephen Michael Gaudette Jr., Randy Michael Valot, Keytrell Michael Pitts, Kawan Artez Bates. From the state of Massachusetts, David Ray Brown, Alonzo Burnham, Danford Dunn, Albert Harry Giles, Edward C. Lynch, Robert Andrew Marr, John Franklin Montague, Samuel Reynolds, Felix Francis Sharkey, Daniel W. Sullivan, Thomas Edmund Young, Alan Foss Ray Jr., Harold Francis McIlvray Jr., Thomas William Devlin, John D. Sunji.
In years past, I have held a candle lit to honor our fallen heroes who gave their lives to serve and protect the values of American democracy and justice that we hold dear. It is a moment to remember our colleagues and the principles and ideals that make law enforcement a noble calling.
With each name read aloud, we're reminded of the incredible courage these individuals demonstrated. And though we're not together in person, we still hold this candlelight vigil to honor the light that they gave to the world while they were here.
From the state of Michigan, Stephen Splann, Benton James Hacker, Waldis Vaness Johnson, Jonathan David Parnell, William James Darnell Jr., Homer Edward Hatt, Caleb Howard Starr, Donafe Collins, Benny Nelson Napoleon, Dean Michael Savard, Bryant Searcy. From the state of Minnesota, Lemick Arthur Larson. From the state of Mississippi, Henry R. Campbell, William C. Cooper, Carter I. Jones, Marshall Lee London, Jr., Dylan Scott Pickle, James Harold Blair. From the state of Missouri, Andrew Derek Clark, Dwight Eugene Willis, Ricky Allen Groves, Kendall Glenn Blackburn, Richard Allen Wright, Herschel Rico Turner, Jr., Christopher Ryan Walsh, Tamaris L. Bohannon.
Every day and every night, officers around the globe walk out of their doors, leaving the safety and comfort of their homes to go out and protect those in need, the less fortunate and the vulnerable.
With this service, we honor men and women who lost their lives in the line of duty.
Behind the 394 names of our fallen brothers and sisters being added to the memorial are stories of courage, commitment, and sacrifice.
These men and women served their communities with dignity and respect.
They relished serving. They served with distinction. They served us all.
Their lives and their memories continue to inspire us.
The loss of their friendship and guidance has left a profound mark, and we will never forget the sacrifices that each and every one of these heroes made.
But keep in mind that heroes are never forgotten. They will live in our hearts and in our minds and in our good deeds.
To the widows, widowers, children, family and friends, and co-workers of our fallen, your loss is a loss to our entire country. And as we pause to remember your loved ones, we promise to always honor, respect, and care for you in the absence of your hero.
So let us never forget, as we honor the dedication, sacrifice, and service of those who went before us and those who are doing that same job on those same streets.
These men and women have sacrificed so much to keep their communities safe.
We will honor their service forever.
We will never forget your sacrifice.
Your unwavering devotion, valor, and dedication to service are an inspiration. You are all heroes.
From state of Nebraska, L. Mario Herrera. From the state of Nevada, Marvin Lee Scott, Eric Larson Lloyd, Benjamin Michael Jenkins. From the state of New Jersey, Altariq Shondell Patterson, Gary Lewis Walker, Leroy George Palmer, Charles Edward Roberts III, Charles H. Ackerman, Thomas Joseph Kavanaugh, Richard H. Fletcher, Jr., Thomas Flynn, Eugene O'Turson, Joseph Francis Sewell, Irving Jean Callender, Michael W. Clegg, Michael Alexander Connors, Marcus Thomas, Maria Gibbs, Nelson Perdomo, Christopher Dennis Cronin, Anthony Joseph Lucanto, Francesco Sebastiano Scorpo Sr., William E. Dabrowski, Lawrence A. Guarnieri, Thomas M. Inman, John J. Kane, John V. McCabe, James Francis Knight, Arthur McKenna, Alex Ruperto.
We have lost too many officers. We grieve for their families. We support them as a community, for they truly are our heroes. May we never forget their sacrifice, and may we continue to work to support our police officers as they do their sacred duty.
I know personally what law enforcement does to protect my community and other communities. They give their lives, keeping us and our families and our community safe. Each name that appears on the memorial walls remind us how each of these officers acted with courage, and we honor them.
My name is Mark Jorgensen, and I was Justin Martin's supervisor at the Urbandale Police Department in Iowa. Justin made the ultimate sacrifice on November 2nd, 2016. Justin was like American Pie. He was from a small town. He was an Eagle Scout, very athletic. When Justin came to the department, there's certain officers that stand out as unique. Justin was one of those officers that came in, shined, and I could tell he was going to go places. I had been recently moved to the overnight shifts, and I came in to work at 6:30 that night on November 1st and sat down, and the first thing we do is we assign territories to the officers. They got their assignments, they headed out, and at 12:53 we received a shots fired call.
7000 Aurora on shots fired.
811, copy on that. And they had sent Justin and another officer to that. A dispatcher came on and told me she had a report of an officer down.
There's been an officer shot at 70th and Aurora.
It was the first time I'd ever heard an officer down call, and we turned the lights on and sirens and proceeded to that intersection quickly. When I pulled up and got out of the car, Justin's door was full of bullet holes. And I ran up and I actually climbed onto the hood because the door was blocking me. And I shined a light in and I could see Justin in the car. And it was pretty evident we couldn't help him. We later learned that there was a vehicle pulled off to the side of the road, and it appeared he needed help. Justin was doing a U-turn to come back to it, and as he did the U-turn, the suspect ran up and ambushed our vehicle. He shot 30 rounds out of an AR-15. During securing our scene, we learned there was another officer ambushed by the same suspect. That was Sergeant Tony Beminio, and he did not survive. Justin was 24 at the time, and I had a crushing guilt over assigning him that territory that night. I was absolutely crushed. I lost one of my guys. When I got home from that night, I was exhausted. Between the adrenaline and the emotions at the scene, I needed to lay down, and The minute I went to sleep is when I started having nightmare and image problems, and I became afraid to sleep. So I just sat up. I actually got on the internet. Everything I found said I had PTSD. You feel like you want to vomit all the time, and my hands would shake, I couldn't eat, and I was scared to tell people I needed help, so I was trying to work through it on my own. About a week and a half to 2 weeks after Justin was killed, I came home one morning and I was so distraught, I sat down at the kitchen table and I was very seriously considering hurting myself. It felt like it was my only option to find any kind of peace. And I looked up on the wall and there was a collage of family pictures up there. And I happened to look up at that, and that's when I told myself, you're not doing that to them. And I reached out for help at that point through Iowa cops. It was months later when I went to Police Week, and we went down to the wall for the first time. We got closer to see where Justin's name was. You're hit with emotion and finality. When you see that name on there, you know it's not going to come off. I remember while sitting by Justin's name and I happened to look up, and there were some kids tracing a name that I think was mom or dad. That's when it started to hit me about the magnitude of what this wall means. Everybody there is sharing something in common. I started to talk to officers from around the globe and recognize that a lot of us are in the same boat. It starts this sense of peace and calm and support that you find everywhere throughout the process. The vigil is remarkable. Thousands of candles are lit and held up in unison. It's like you're sharing the flame with the thousands of people that are there, and it brings a sense of peace. And that was hard to find for me then. And it was one of the rare moments of calm that I had in that several-month time period. And I've learned the more that you share the trauma and hardships that come along with this, it helps the survivors cope with that more. To reach out for help is not a sign of weakness, it's actually a sign of strength. We're coming up on 5 years since this occurred, and I'm still working through it. I still go to counseling, but I'm still here, and that's the main thing.
In America, we know that our public safety, our freedom, and our prosperity are bought at a price. Policing is not a job, it's a vocation. Day or night, on duty or off, they never stop protecting others.
We owe them so much, and what we do owe them most of all is that we'll never forget their sacrifice. So this candlelight vigil tonight, even though it is virtual, is in recognition of that dedication, of that sacrifice, and promise that we will never forget.
As we approach the 20th anniversary of 9/11, we continue to be reminded of the heroic actions taken by many of the Port Authority police officers. As always, we will never forget. Thank you.
From the state of New York, Raymond C. Aber, Robert A. Cardona, Frank L. Gagliano, Michael H. Granis, Thomas A. Herbert, Justin C. Lenz, Christopher B. McDonnell, William T. Morris, Eric Murray, Jack V. Polameni, Nancy Puka, Jeffrey Allen Scalf, John Thompson, Stephen Lawrence Raymond, Jennifer M. Zarnecki, Joseph Spinoza, Craig L. Capolino, Keith S. Allison, Randall Clayton French. From the state of North Carolina, Jason Nicholas Shuping, Alexander Reginald Pettyway Jr., Robert Lee Bain, William T. Bowman, Norman O.D. Day Jr., Lakaya Louise Rouse, Ryan Philip Hendricks, C. for Cert Fran Frothajon, Tyler Avery Herndon, Jared Michael Allison, Nolan James Sanders.
The month of May is time for us to stop and reflect about the heroism and the bravery that's really exhibited each and every day by members of our profession.
Let's join together in solidarity to acknowledge the bravery and the sacrifice of our nation's fallen officers as their names are added to the memorial walls.
Every day, nationwide, law enforcement officers carry out their duties to protect and serve.
They run towards danger when every instinct tells them to run from danger.
To all those who wake up every morning and go to work to protect our families and our communities, thank you. The American people are grateful for your sacrifices and for your tireless work to keep our families safe.
We are so grateful for your unwavering dedication and commitment to service.
While many of us stayed home, law enforcement officers showed up for duty, risking bodily harm and regular exposure to the coronavirus.
When these officers paid the ultimate sacrifice, a part of America died.
And it is just a privilege to give them honor today.
Today, on National Peace Officer Memorial Day,
we honor the names and memories added to this memorial to be forever remembered.
We are indebted to them for the sacrifices they made.
I want to thank the families of these officers for sharing their mothers, their fathers, their siblings, and their spouses with us.
To our officers and their families,
we will always remember your leadership, your service, your dedication. We're grateful to all of you. We will not forget.
We honor and remember your memory.
God bless you all.
From the state of North Dakota, Cody Nathaniel Holt. From the state of Ohio, James Michael Skirnovitz, Adam S. McMillan, Kaya LaFay Grant, Rex Foe, Anthony Hussein Dia. From the state of Oklahoma, Jared Don Taylor, Shirley Joe Lanning, Jeffrey Wade Sewell, Craig Vincent Johnson. From the state of Oregon, Zachariah H. Stroud, From the state of Pennsylvania, Robert William Seelock. Mark Joseph Romutis. Thomas E. Booz. John J. Kuhar, Jr. Michael Lee Henry, Jr. Dale Thomas Provins, Jr. Philip Brady. Patrick Slevin. Jacob Albright. Tab T. Ali. Hillary Baker. Elijah A. Brewer. Edward Charles Dorman, Jr. John J. Hollowell. Hiram Hammer. William Sebastian Hendrickson. Frank Clay Hutton. Thomas W. Lawler. John Laurie. Robert McGuffin. James Miller. Frank Rocco Milillo Sr. George Francis Nick. Jose Manuel Novoa. James R. O'Connor IV. Frank Perry. James Walker, Jr. Joseph M. Yaus. John Stack. William Lewis Ammerman.
Words fall short of expressing my gratitude, but I hope you will please accept my sincerest appreciation for daily putting your lives on the line for all of us, and for those who have made the supreme sacrifice, and to your families, thank you and God bless.
2021 marks the 35th anniversary of my dad's end of watch. When my dad was killed in 1986, I was just 7 years old and quickly had to take the helm as the man of the house for my mom and sister. To all survivors of the heroes we are honoring, we are here for you. Those aren't just words, that is a promise. We make sure our officers are never forgotten and that no survivor travels this new journey alone. Thank you and God bless.
My name is James Haynes. My father, James Darrell Haynes II, was a Lance Corporal for the South Carolina Highway Patrol. His nickname was Rock. That's kind of what he was to my family and especially me. He was just a goofy and overprotective guy that literally just lights up a room. And he was kind of like that person that was always there for you. Last time I saw him was January 31st, 2008. I saw him, hugged him, told him goodbye before he went to work. And Friday, February 1st, 2008, it was about 3 o'clock in the morning. He was responding to a tractor trailer accident on the interstate. It was raining really bad. He was trying to hurry up and get to the accident scene. His car ended up hydroplaning and ended up hitting a utility pole. My father made the ultimate sacrifice on February 1st, 2008. I was 8. My little brother was 6 at the time. It was about 6 in the morning-ish. I remember I kind of walked out my room. A state trooper walked out. She told me to go ahead and come downstairs, and I was so confused. My mom, she sat me down and laid it all on me. She was like, you know, Dad's been in an accident, so he had to go to heaven. I miss my dad. I think about him all the time. The older I got, it definitely started to take a little wear and tear on me. I get teary-eyed and weary. Just like those big accomplishments over the years, you know, he's not there, getting to go to prom, getting that first girlfriend, you know, not having anybody to really talk to. Those are situations where I just start looking back and it's like, man, I wonder how things would be if you were still here. I know he's still here in spirit. I always got that thing in the back of my mind just telling me, you know, he's watching. Keep going. That's my dad, me and my brother. If I had one more chance to talk to my dad, there's so much I gotta tell you. So much I really need to hear from you. Even though your life was cut short, I know you see the world from upstairs. He's on my mind every day. There's pictures of him everywhere. This is my favorite of my mom and dad. So he's always with me. You know, he's here. The first time I went to the wall, I was 9 years old. Just seeing my dad's name and seeing all those others of thousands of names, it was just like a life-changing experience. It literally puts you in that mindset to let you know that you're not alone. 2019, I was in my second semester at Clemson University and we traveled to Washington, D.C. We visited the wall. That was my first time being there in over 10 years. So seeing that again was just very comforting, very heartwarming. I think it is important to have a memorial wall for the fallen officers. Make sure that others are comforted, make sure that others are honored, and make sure that this wall is dedicated to the right people. Making sure that everyone's officer is honored the right way. One of the biggest things for me is one day I want to have a family of my own, and I'm going to make sure that they know, about their grandfather. Hopefully taking them to the wall in years to come, they'll know, like, wow, they'll think what I think. My dad was a hero.
From the state of South Carolina, Ethan Ross Kaskin, Jeremy Christopher Ledoux, Robert John Hall, Jackson Ryan Winkler, William Conley Jumper Jr., Michael H. Ambrosino, Mikos Leonardo Newman, Jacob William Hansher, Andrew John Gillette. From the state of South Dakota, Lee Russell Weber. From the state of Tennessee, Destin Scott Legeza, Oscar Leonard Nance, Lon Raines, James O. Riddle, Francis Marion Alford, Bobby Rodriguez Montgomery, Anthony Terrence Jackson Sr., Jeremy Devon Smith.
We at 511 are honored to be partnering with the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund for another year. Our appreciation for law enforcement and their sacrifices has never been greater. Honoring them, supporting them and their families, and recognizing their heroic actions.
We recognize and thank the brave men and women of law enforcement. Noble joins our nation in this solemn moment to honor and pay tribute to our colleagues who have given the ultimate sacrifice. They have left this world, but not our hearts.
From the state of Texas, Jose Antonio Busso Sr., Lionel Q. Martinez Jr., Sheena Day Yarborough Powell, John Andrew Roden, Timothy P. De La Fuente, William Homer Hill, Brad Andrew Briscoe, Alan Daniel McCullum, Charlie Williams Jr., Bronk Justin McCoy, Marion Wayne Rhodes, Marvin Wayne Trejo, Alexander A. Arango, Caleb Daniel Rule, Mark Christopher Brown, Cornelius Bernard Anderson, Juan Menchaca Jr., Raymond John Skolwinski, Johnny Ramos Tunches, Dennis Roy Oliver Jr., Lemuel Delray Bruce Jr., Jason Michael Knox, Ernest Leal Jr., Harold Lloyd Preston, Dudley James Champ, John Carter Scroggins, Richard Edward Witten, Nicholas Lee Reyna, Ismael Z. Chavez, Eldemiro Garza Jr., Bill Langford Cornell Sr., Christopher Allen Smith, Christopher Lynn Elder, Jorge Cabrera, Lyle Jean Denny, Tracy Allen Gaines, A.G. Hall, Justin Reed Putnam, David Lynn Schmidt, Charles Edward Holt III, Jerry William Jones, Craig Levoris King, Joseph William Lang, Laboit A. Boa, Coy Dale Kaufman Jr., James David Coleman, Herbert James Garcia, Jonathan Keith Goodman Sr., Kenneth Wayne Harbin, Eric Travante Johnson, Maria Luisa Mendez, Thomas A. Ogunbe, Donald Eugene Parker, Roderick L. Rogers, James Willard Weston Jr., Kelvin D. Wilcher, Dale Edward Moulter, Christopher Scott Corzilius, Raul Adam Gomez.
Please know that their lives did not end in vain. I ask that you please keep their friends and their families in your thoughts and prayers during this very difficult time. And thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to recognize them in this ceremony.
Remembering our fallen and ensuring that their legacies will live on is a duty, and we need to share the stories of our heroes, speak about their bravery, selflessness, humanity, compassion, and yes, sometimes, but most importantly, their final sacrifice.
The original Police Unity Tour was founded in 1997 by Pat Montori. It was 18 riders, and they arrived at the memorial and presented the check for $18,000.
Our motto is, we ride for those that died.
The mission of the Police Unity Tour is to never forget the officers who gave the ultimate sacrifice in our profession. The first time that we did it, we thought it was just going to be a one-time ride.
Since then, it has risen dramatically. We now have 2,800 members, approximately 40 states. We also have several countries that ride with us.
They're all police officers, most of them, or survivors.
A lot of the officers do know someone personally.
I am riding for my brother, Daniel Takashi Sakai.
And that's why it means so much to them, to be able to try to keep that person's memory alive.
My dad was a police officer in the city of Garfield, New Jersey. Sergeant Ignacio J. Chupa. He was killed in 1954 on March 15th. At the time, I was about 8 months old. The Unity Tour is important to me because it lets me know that my dad will never be forgotten. This is going to be my 20th year riding for my dad. My dad was one of the first ones put on the wall. The wall is, to me, what my dad is.
We ride 300 plus miles in 4 days. We ride past schools where the students are out high-fiving us as we drive by. It's an amazing feeling seeing that support.
The day that we ride into the memorial, we're 2,800 strong. I get goosebumps every year I ride in.
Every rider has a different reaction. You can't believe how overwhelmed they become when they actually ride through the memorial.
I will never forget that first time riding through that wall, hearing those voices of all those officers that had given their ultimate sacrifice. And I have not missed one since.
We're a grassroots organization. Each rider goes out and has the opportunity to educate the community about our memorial and why we ride for our officers who die in the line of duty.
We raise money to continue to maintain that living memorial.
To keep the memorial in pristine condition and to honor all of those that are engraved on the walls.
Since the Police Unity Tour has started, it's miraculous that we are able to raise over $30 million with the support and assistance of our stakeholders, law enforcement organizations, and all the families and friends of law enforcement. We've been around 25 years. It's honorable with one cause. We ride for those who died. What matters is bringing the attention of the sacrifices and the contributions of all law enforcement officers. 22,611 engraved on this wall. 182 of our fallen out of that 394 this year were COVID-19 deaths. And unfortunately, they're people you know.
I've been riding with the Police Unity Tour for 24 years. This year is a really tough one, you know, because I'm riding for my brother, Detective Marcus Thomas, in the North Police Department. Got sick passed away, caught the COVID, and that was it. At some point, everything hits you. And my thoughts of him will be on my mind. The things we did, the things we shared, you know, how we was together. It provides a lot of comfort to me about his name being engraved on the wall. I will be there to visit his name, you know.
These brave men and women need to be honored and they need to be remembered, because if their name is spoken, they're never forgotten. We all bleed blue.
Law enforcement officers across the country risk their lives every day to keep people safe, and it's a sacrifice we can never repay. I will always stand up for the men and women who have worked so hard to make our nation the safe America we know and love.
Tonight, as we should every night and every day, we should remember those who we have lost, who paid the ultimate price and gave the ultimate sacrifice so that our families, our children, so we can be safe.
From the state of Utah, Nathan James Lyday. From the state of Virginia, Robert Charles Sunukian. Catherine Mary Tyne. Angelinette Moore. From the state of Washington, Curtis James Engett. Jonathan Paul Shoup. John Michael Melvin. Beresford Anthony Morse. Suzanne Renee Paget. Justin Robert Schaefer. Daniel Glenn Oakes. From the state of West Virginia, Cassie Marie Johnson. Levin Oliver Zimmerman. From the state of Wisconsin, Richard Charles Treadwell.
Every day I think about the men and women in law enforcement and the bravery and the sacrifice they make to keep our communities safe. I wouldn't be here today without the bravery of the Capitol Police officers who saved my life. On this day especially, we pay tribute, but we also remember our men and women in law enforcement every single day.
We sleep peacefully in our beds at night because brave men and women have dedicated their lives to serving and protecting. To the loved ones of the fallen, the entire Bio One family sends our deepest gratitude and utmost respect. Thank you. You were not forgotten.
These brave men and women put their own lives on the line to protect ours, and we look to them more than ever in the face of many recent challenges. On behalf of all of us at Motorola Solutions, we give thanks to these fallen heroes and their families.
It is critically important to take time out of our busy schedules to reflect on all those that have voluntarily gone in harm's way to protect and serve us each and every day.
From the federal agencies, Lowry Ware Sr. Luis Henry Aguirre. Jason Kai Fan. Joseph Dennis Helton Jr. Luis O. Pena Jr. Augustin Aguilar Jr. Carlo J. Cayabiab. Roel de la Fuente. Christopher Doyle Carney. Marco Antonio Gonzalez. Domingo Jasso III. Richard McCoy, Johann Morden, Alfonso H. Murrieta, Omar E. Palmer, Richard Rios, Enrique J. Rositas, Jr., Jose Antonio Santana, Lucas G. Saucedo, Jr., Ching Kok Yan, Kenneth Robert Meisel, Simon Combs, Augustus Harris, Brian Leith McGee, John B. McAdams, Anthony Charles McGrew, Betty Ann Pascarella, Charles T. Sparks, William Nathan Turner, Oscar Jesus Temores.
I'm privileged to be here today to honor our fallen law enforcement officers, those who made the ultimate sacrifice while protecting all of us. I'm personally humbled by their selflessness. Thank you for your dedication and service, our true heroes.
This past year has brought many challenges for every American. As if the pandemic and social unrest were not enough, our surviving families have endured so much more. We pledge to our surviving families, both blood and blue, we will grieve with you and we will draw strength from one another.
Behind every name read here tonight, and on the walls of the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial, are stories and memories that burn brightly tonight and always.
To the husbands and wives, mothers and fathers, sons and daughters whose loved one's name is now engraved in this living memorial, please know their sacrifice will never, never be forgotten.
From the tribal agencies, Charlie Joe Cortez, David Wesley Kellywood. From the Railroad Police, Charles Hale, Thomas J. Sullivan, Thomas Clay Warden, Archibald D. Brandon, Owen Mulgrew, E. William Hendricks, Bolslaws Wozniak, George Jemba, Oliver Columbus Grems, James Edward McDuffie, Robert W. Mulcahy, Victor Arthur McGee. From the U.S. territory of Guam, Glenn Timothy Francisco Martinez. From the U.S. Commonwealth of Puerto Rico, Jose Antonio Garcia Vasquez, Miguel Angel Martinez Ortiz, Ricardo Perez Ortiz, Myra Mercedes Rodriguez Bergado.
Days dawn, gone the sun, from the lake, from the hills, from the sky. All is well, safely rest.
On behalf of our team at Verizon, it has been our honor to bring tonight's event to the hundreds of thousands of people who have joined us from around the world. As we reflect on the commitment shown by those we honor tonight, let us also pay tribute by renewing our commitment to supporting those who continue to serve and being present for them and their families when they're hurting and need our support. So as we close, I too want to again recognize the heroic acts displayed by those we remember and honor tonight.
Thank you for joining us tonight in honoring our nation's fallen law enforcement heroes. We also honor the survivors, families, friends, co-workers, whose lives will forever be changed by this loss. And I want to again thank Adam Rose and presenting corporate partner Verizon. Without them, tonight would not have been possible. And we want to thank you for joining us in honoring the fallen. As the country begins to open up again, we look forward to welcoming you to our law enforcement campus here in Washington, D.C., where you can visit the memorial and the National Law Enforcement Museum. Lastly, we'll see you here in Washington, D.C. on October 14th for the live 2021 Candlelight Vigil. Good night, stay safe, and God bless America.
Each year, hundreds of American law enforcement officers are killed in the line of duty. Their names are added to the walls of the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial in Washington, D.C. This year, on the 30th anniversary of the memorial, 394 more names will be etched into these marble walls.